Today on Voice of the Valleys is the story of a young Scottish girl now being hailed as the next Boudica or the next Queen of Scots. Has sort of galvanized the nation. The media has predictably gone into overdrive to protect, of course, precious narratives and the seeming perpetrator. But it does seem that there is a lot more to this story than meets the eye. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the recent tragedy that occurred in Minnesota where two children tragically had their lives taken from them by a trans terrorist. And we're going to talk about some of the factors as well as the main thing that needs to be addressed is that this is now turning into a domestic terror threat on all of our nations. Finally, we're going to round out today. We're talking about the Notting Hill Carnival and why it really, really needs to be destroyed. All that and more today on Voice of the Valleys. Hi, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys yet again with your host, friendly neighborhood far-right thug, always satirical unless he is not, Mr. George Cresswell. And if I look a little bit different today, if I look a little bit more vibrant, if the colors look like they're popping a little bit more than they usually do, I've been messing with the webcam settings a little bit inside of OBS to try and make it look a little bit better and also to make sure that the focus is right. And I'm hoping the focus is going to be a lot better today because I notice sometimes when I move, as I have a tendency to do, right, the focus tends to be lost and the autofocus shifts and then it focuses to my lovely Bailey dog plushie in the background. Anyway, get straight into it today. Thank you to everybody that's, again, kept up with the channel, that's chosen to subscribe, that leaves comments, shares, likes, etc., all of that great stuff. You guys are very, very much appreciated. And, just hope you continue to get value out of the show. Hope it continues to be something that you obviously enjoy listening to or watching, the things that we go over, but mostly, obviously, informative. And that leads us into our main story of today, which has been a lot of conversation, a lot of uproar over the recent incident of the young girl in Scotland who was caught, or who was videoed rather, brandishing a knife and an axe, who was taken into police custody and I believe charged with possession of a knife and an axe after being accosted by what seemed to be a gang, or at least an adult migrant male and seemingly an adult migrant female as well. Well, more info has started to break on this story. Before I go into the Daily Mail article, which in my opinion has done the same thing that the mainstream media tried to do at the height of the Southport stuff, when they wouldn't show us who Axel Rudikabana truly was, they displayed a lot of very favorable, very cutesy, untrue photographs of him like that. Now infamous, I was going to say iconic, but now infamous photo of him dressed up as Doctor Who when he was a child, right? Despite the fact that he was, much older and much more evil and satanic looking when he actually committed the attack, as we saw by his now infamous mugshot as well. But before we go into the Axel Rudikabanian style reporting that, in my opinion, the Daily Mail engaged in, I want to give you some context that somebody posted up on X, who spoke to the mother of one of the girls who was involved in this incident, who saw everything, and is going to help clear up a lot of things that we were told that went on. It corroborates a lot of the things that we were told about before, but there is a lot more that we need to talk about as well. So this person, go by Aesthetica on X, allegedly spoke to the mother of one of the girls and got the entire story that the media is covering up and lying about. That's what they allege. So first off, we're going to clarify some of the names of the girls before we go on, because the media seem to get them mixed up. 3 girls in all were accosted and attacked by, these migrant people, right? And the media, one of the big things the media tried to do is downplay it, the fact they're not migrants. They absolutely are, right? Mr. Fatos Ali Dumana, right? Lola is the girl whom is now being hailed as the queen, so to speak, the Scottish revolutionary, right? The one who's been, all the artwork has been made about, right? The one with the axe defending her sister from migrant attackers. The one who was attacked in question is Ruby. Ruby is apparently Lola's older sister, who was actually attacked and hospitalized. And I'll explain more about that now, ladies and gentlemen. Maya is Ruby's best friend, whom is the daughter of the mother in question, who's giving this testimony, who was with them and went to call the police after Ruby was attacked by the migrants. So allegedly, directly from Maya's mother, right, the friend's mother, this is what happened. Quote, "Yes, so what happened was the girls were just out walking and the man in the picture made comments to Lola, the younger girl, the younger girl in this instance, calling her sexy and other sexual remarks. Then the girl started to tell this man to leave them alone and stop following them and making sexual remarks to them. After that, the man's sister, now I'm not sure if the mother might have gotten confused here or whatever, but the Daily Mail would allege that he was out with his wife, so maybe the mother thought that it was his sister, turns out it was the wife, or maybe there was another figure there in addition that the media didn't report, okay? So the way I'm reading this could either be the wife, alleged wife of this man, or the mother, right? Or the sister, sorry, that they describe here. She grabbed her hair, dragged her to the floor, and started to punch her. Then both the man and the woman were kicking her head in whilst she was on the floor. At this point, my daughter, i.e. Maya, called the police. So my daughter's account after that is all a bit blurry, but that is when Lola had the weapons and she pulled them out to protect Ruby. After that, the man came back at Lola, recording her, making sure she showed the weapons to the camera and antagonizing her. Ruby was hospitalized after the attack with a severe concussion, a tennis ball-sized lump on the back of her head, as well as a lot of bruises. And that's where the quote ends. This is true. Obviously, I'm having to say that because there's been no conviction or anything like that, but I'm not one of these people that's going to take the side of the fucking adult migrants in a situation where it seems that young girls, young Scottish girls, are being threatened in a pattern that we've seen enabled by the government going back generations, right? Certainly not going to be the kind of person that, in my opinion, the people whom have taken that road, saying that in this instance it's the young Scottish girl that's the aggressor or that's the agitator in this instance, this is true, they're going to have a very fucking rude awakening. Let me tell you that. But you'd be forgiven for thinking this if you only go by mainstream media outlets, such as the Daily Mail. So the Daily Mail, right, and this is the false article that the person is referencing here, said that the ugly clip from a Dundee housing estate in which a schoolgirl brandished a knife and axe soon went viral, with rabble-rousers such as Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson pitching in to claim the man filming the exchange was a migrant. Now, first off, ladies and gentlemen, you only need to go back and rewatch that clip, and we played the clip in the previous episode, so go back and rewatch the clip in the previous episode if you haven't already done so, number 47. It's the first story we go through, so you can go back and listen to that. You can tell by the way the person is speaking, the man's voice, he is not a Scottish person. Right, okay? He's not a Scottish person. So obviously Scots have a distinctive accent, and that is not a Scottish accent you hear speaking, right? And it's not an English accent. It's not a Welsh accent, right? It's an accent you'll hear from elsewhere on the planet. You know, I don't want to say stereotypical Middle Eastern or, you know, maybe Central European or towards that Eastern European, right, kind of region you might be hearing this accent from, which makes sense, right? Because they said here, we can now reveal that the man being threatened is supposedly a family man who's been living in the UK for 4 years and was accompanied by his wife on the way to the shops when the incident occurred. And this is where they tried to obfuscate then. They tried to obfuscate and claim that, as far as I know at least, Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson never claimed that he was a fresh off the channel small boat migrant, right? Just claimed that he was a migrant, which is unequivocally true, because he came here 4 years ago from Bulgaria. He came here 4 years ago from Bulgaria. And apparently him and his wife have an 8-month baby, but he's a 21-year-old by the name of Fatos Ali Dumana. That's his name. So again, for the media to claim that he isn't a migrant is very disingenuous, because he literally is. He literally is. Even if he came here 4 years ago, tell me, by the way, how a 21-year-old when he came here 4 years ago gets put up in social housing, mind you, when Scots his age don't even get that. And he came to Britain legally from Bulgaria. That makes him a migrant. So if people were claiming that he was a migrant, they're 100% correct. They're 100% correct. But this is the thing. They want to try and obfuscate now and say that anybody noting any problems with migrants committing crime wherever they come from, however long they've been here, instantly that means that you think they're going to be part of the channel boat migrants, the dinghy invasion that's coming across, right? No, because we know the vast majority of the problems with regards to immigration have come from the legal, quote unquote, legal immigration system, which I've spoken at length before. It's an illegal system, right? And sadly, that doesn't make any person that's come here even legally clearly above the threshold which the native people voted for, which they were betrayed on at every single turn, that makes them illegal because the system was illegal. So that's just the unfortunate reality of it. The self-styled digital creator took the chance to have his own say on the bust-up, which launched 1,000 memes, and which also led to the girl being charged by police. Notice he didn't get charged, mind you. And in the video, you can see her, "Don't touch my sister, she's only 12. But here's some of the images that the Daily Mail shared. This is why I think it's important to go through. Here's some of the images that the Daily Mail shared, right? So the Mail, in this instance, the Daily Mail, shared images like this. This is one of them coming up on screen now, where you can see he looks okay, right? He's dressed up in a blue shirt, jeans, and he's, you know, got his wife on his arm. Presumably this is his wife. It says in the caption that this is his wife, right? Who's apparently 8 months pregnant. Nice photo of the two of them, right? And this is the kind of images that they use to drum up this narrative that supposedly he's a lovely family man, right? Here's another image of when I think he's a little bit younger in this image. And again, you're starting to see the Axel Rudicabana themes coming through as we go through this, ladies and gentlemen, where you can see he's dressed up in a nice suit in this one. Hair's very well groomed. Obviously been to the hairdresser at some point before this. Watch on the wrist, the distinctive way we put our hand in our pocket, where we put our four fingers in the pocket and leave a thumb out on our trousers, right? All of these nice images that were shared, right? Again, please, ladies and gentlemen, as we're viewing these images, we got a couple more. I just want to get my laptop charger a moment. We got a couple more to highlight. Oh, there we are. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Got a couple more to highlight as well, which we'll bring up on screen for you now. But I don't know whether you would have seen it. You might have already seen it on X, for example. A lot of people have been sharing a lot of images which are a lot less favorable, should we say. So now, if I bring... So they show some images of again, Lola as well. This is now another image of Mr. Dumana, where he seems to be at some kind of social event or whatever. And he's got a wine glass in his hand. He's holding the wine glass up towards the camera. Again, hair very well done. Nice white dress shirt, nice trousers, seemingly sitting at like a table or a piano with an orange curtain in the background. And there's actually one more, I believe, I wanted to show, where he sat here. He sat on the side of what appears to be some kind of stone bench kind of thing that you might see outside a corner shop or something like that, with a dog down in between his feet, ripped jeans, you know, beigey browny jacket, sunglasses, again, well groomed, well trimmed hair, all the rest of it. Looking like you'd think, oh, you wouldn't think much of a problem with this, right? And you might actually then be inclined to accept the media's narrative on it, right? Much like some of us were duped into around Southport before, you know, people started getting locked up for speaking the truth about the fact that the attacker was a radical fucking Muslim, right? He alleges that there was more than one person who come up to the police. She was attacking me and calling me a fucking migrant. I'm not an illegal migrant. I haven't done anything. He says that he did not hit them. But here's some other photos, ladies and gentlemen, which I think you'll find quite telling that the Mail did not share these. Because Ali Dumana, if we're to take him at his own word, would classify himself, based on the caption of this Instagram photo, as a gypsy gangster man. So I'm not sure if you can see on screen, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I am sure you can see on the screen. It is being displayed on the screen. It's a black and white photo of him taken where he's flipping off the camera. He has some kind of tattoo on his chest, which looks like to be some sort of bird wing or angel's wing, whatever it is. But you can see he's wearing a balaclava, which despite the black and white filter, you can see that it's some kind of camo pattern. Much of a different outlook on this man, would you not say? Would you not say? So now, these are some of the other images that have been shared recently as well. And I'll link this post down below where you can see this. There's another one here where he's with an associate. I would presume, and I can only presume that this is the same balaclava that he was wearing in the previous one. Caption goes, "I can with you, I can do without you, don't you forget it," from December 2021. This image, as you'll see again from his own Instagram page, allegedly paints a much different picture. So this is his friend is flipping off the camera with both hands, wearing what we can presume is that same balaclava, except it's a color image this time from the first photo. And then finally, this one, which bear in mind, remember the Daily Mail said that this was a, nice family man. He come over here with his wife. His wife's 8 months pregnant. They chose to run that photo of them looking, really, nice and happy together, presumably, although he wasn't really smiling all that much. Here's another, and people can change, but here's another photo from September of 2021. September of 2021, right? So it would have been not long, if anything, after he came here. Because if he came here 4 years ago, then I would put it square right around this time was when he would have arrived in this country. An Instagram post, "I'm waiting for you whores to get in my supercar," is the caption, ladies and gentlemen. You can see he sat on the door of this car, which is some kind of convertible of some kind. It's an older style car. Nice car, has to be said. It's the nicest thing about this image. But you can see there in the profile picture at the time that he has on Instagram, which actually, I will zoom in on it for you and move it across, ladies and gentlemen. If we go with the same image and look at this profile photo, we can presume at the time he said this, he was with his wife at the time. So again, hard to go along with the, media narrative that they want, that this is a lovely family man that's been persecuted or whatever, on his, maybe weekly jaunt to the shops with his wife or whatever. Certainly get to paint a different image. Not to mention, ladies and gentlemen, another person shared this image online, which I wanted to bring this up as a separate photo, but I can't really now for the time being. You'll see that on the back of his neck, in this photo here, he has a distinctive tattoo, which you'll notice that there was another person that had this tattoo actually on their face. I believe it was the same guy that said he wanted to slash up Irish babies. But I'm not sure what this says, ladies and gentlemen. If you're able to translate this in the comments, please do, because I'd like to know what this says. It looks like an M. It looks like a stylized M-A-F-I, a Q and a H, so Mafika. And he identifies himself as I said, a gypsy gangster. So is that meant to be like a stylized mafia kind of thing? But again, an AK-47 tattoo on the back of his neck. You can forgive people, if anything, for being maybe a little bit judgmental or for being, on edge when they see things like this. But the good thing is Mr. Dumana was, as I said, not really concealing seemingly whom he thought that he was, as is evidenced by this video as well, which I'll bring up on screen for you in a moment, ladies and gentlemen, where he is dancing and pointing fingers at the camera as if he's holding guns, which you can see quite clearly here. Kissing, blowing a kiss towards the camera. Paints a much different picture, doesn't it? Now, you might argue that this is just harmless video or whatever, but then when you learn that he apparently, going by the mother of Maya, her accounts, that he attacked Ruby, grabbed her, dragged her to the floor, and was kicking her in the head while she was on the floor, makes you think whose side the media are on. Makes you think whose side the media are on. Makes you think what else could have been involved here as well, which some people were starting to join the dots a little bit. And I'm not saying this is concrete or whatever, ladies and gentlemen, because I do believe that we're going to go through some news articles in a moment, but you'll see what I mean. When police arrested Lola, I believe it was, people found not long after, in the aftermath of this, found several news articles dated from July of this year, end of July going into August this year, that explained that the girls were missing. Sisters Ruby and Lola, I'm not sure how to pronounce the surname, M-O-I-R, I'm presuming it's Moya, have been reported missing after last spotted visiting a Dundee shopping centre. So this is from a Daily Record, right? Two sisters were last seen visiting a Dundee shopping centre have vanished as police launch an urgent search. Ruby Moyer, 13, and her younger sister Lola Moyer, 12, have been reported missing after being last seen around 5 p.m. on Tuesday, July 29th at the Wellgate Shopping Centre in Dundee. Pair are known to regularly frequent Dundee city centre. Neither have access to a phone. However, police say they may be in possession of bus passes and a small amount of money. The last time Ruby was spotted, she was wearing a black jacket, orange shorts and white Crocs. She's described as white, slim build, 4'10", long black hair. Lola is described as white, slim build, 5'2" with long black hair. The last time Lola was seen, she was wearing a blue Nike t-shirt and light blue jeans with tears on the knees. Now remember, it's quite distinctive in that video, ladies and gentlemen, which if you go back and watch it, that last description of Lola, if we didn't have another news articles to go through at the moment, which provided they're true, at least makes me think that, people, thankfully, they might have been getting this wrong with their assertions. She was wearing a blue Nike t-shirt and light blue jeans with tears on the knees. You distinctly remember that Lola indeed was wearing jeans with tears on the knees, and she did indeed have a Nike t-shirt on. So a lot of people were then thinking, did the police come by and just arrest potentially kidnap victims? And I want to say it's entirely possible, but only because the only reason I say that it could possibly not be the case also, and this could potentially just be an isolated incident, is because there was a report then in the Courier from July 30th, posted in the morning at 11:57, that missing Dundee sisters 12 and 13 last seen at Wellgate have been traced. Ruby and Lola Moyer were last seen on a Tuesday evening. Two missing sisters who were last seen at the Wellgate Shopping Centre have been traced. Why would they use the word traced? Why would they not use the word found? Surely they've been found or returned to the families would be, appropriate, if they were actually okay. But it says here the girls are understood to be safe and well. They were believed to be in each other's company. Starting to think, were these girls potentially on the run? Were these girls potentially on the run? And who are they potentially on the run from? Because, and I'm not saying these are in any way related whatsoever, ladies and gentlemen, though it is important to point out, not far from where this incident took place, there was indeed a Romanian grooming gang convicted of sexually exploiting women in Dundee. Police Scotland detectives said the gang plied their victims with alcohol and free Class A drugs at parties before coercing them into sexual activity. Here are the, oh no, sorry ladies and gentlemen, I've just closed the window on accident. Bear with me, please, 2 seconds. I was going to bring the full image up on screen. Do bear with me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. I accidentally closed the window instead of going on full screen. So this is from Sky News, I believe this is. Let me just double check. Yes, this is a Sky News publication. And this is the image that was shared of those people that were involved in this Romanian grooming gang, which I don't believe was very far from the area in which the girls were accosted, where this incident took place in Dundee. So you have, coming up on screen for you now, from left to right, you have Remus Stan, Alexandra Bugonia, Mercia Marian Kumpanasayou, however you say that, Christian Erlatinu, and Catalin Dobre. So again, when you see things like this, it does make you wonder what the hell was going on. So this Romanian grooming gang had been convicted of sexually exploiting 10 vulnerable women in Dundee. 4 men and 1 woman were found guilty of dozens of sexual offences, including rape, following an extensive investigation into sexual exploitation, human trafficking, and the supply of drugs in the Tayside area. I just listed off all of the people there. Absolutely deplorable, said Connor Gillies, Sky News Scotland correspondent. The detective said the gang plied women with alcohol and free Class A drugs at parties before coercing them into sexual activity, which a lot of them did not want to do. As things progressed, they were so addicted to the drugs that they knew the only way they could get the drugs was to perform sexual acts that they were having to get involved in. It's disgusting. According to this, the gang hadn't been sentenced at the time, but it doesn't say, I don't believe it says how old the victims were in this particular case. I'm just double checking the article to see if it does say. But again, not saying that these are directly related, ladies and gentlemen, but it does then make you wonder, with how much that we've seen of how the police will cover for these things, and how much the media, the fact that the media blaming the victims of the grooming gangs was what allowed the grooming gangs to prosper in the way that they did. And we just seem to be seeing more and more and more of that. And you can't blame then people for either going off doing their own investigation and not being satisfied with what the media tells them, because we've seen that the media will lie. We've seen that the media will lie. So I'll try and keep you posted on this as more becomes available, ladies and gentlemen. I have not seen, again, I would imagine that if these girls had either been trafficked or whatever, had been kidnapped and were missing for that long, the parents or the friend of the mother's friend, whom we had the testimony from at the start of the episode, would have made that known. But again, if something does come out in the future, I'll be sure to keep you updated with it. But again, there's something very, very... This just speaks to how sinister everything is. We have countless examples now of everything going on, but this just speaks to how sinister this is, and why, if you're only getting your news from the mainstream media sources, you're going to be left out of information, because they didn't mention any of this. They didn't show you any of the photos of Ali Dumana saying that... Here we go. That's a nice sound. Saying that he was a gypsy gangster, right? They tried to downplay that, tried to lump it in with all of the quote-unquote far-right people that are going on about the dinghy invasion and stuff like that, saying, no, this guy's not a dinghy invader. He's a family man. He's not even a migrant, despite the fact that he came here 4 years ago. Is that all it takes to, become indigenous at this point, 4 years? No, of course not. This just shows you that where the media loyalties lie. It's not to you, it's not protecting you, and it's the media's that is to blame the victims if it will suit their narrative. Speaking of blaming the victims to suit their narrative, we're going to move on now to a really big tragedy that happened recently. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, you would have seen a slight jump cut there because I was just having a bit of a drink because I was very, very thirsty. But what happened recently in America was something very, very tragic indeed. So in America, Minnesota, at an Annunciation Catholic school and church, a trans-identified, seemingly coming out, some people are trying to defend it as if he was a D-trans or something like that now. But either way, it does seem that a trans-identified person by the name of Robin Westman, who... Again, the mother, who was supposedly on a Catholic faculty, I believe, herself of a Catholic institution, agreed for him to change his name under the guise of him becoming trans or whatever when he was 17 to Robin Westman from Robert Westman. Went into a school and killed two children, and I believe injured many more. No doubt there'll be a lot of emotional and mental damage on the part of the children, which they'll have to contend with as well. It's very, very sad to see, and sadly this is a part of an emerging pattern that we've seen over the last few years. You only got to look at a Covenant school shooter, I believe it was in Tennessee, who Audrey Hale, maybe it was a trans-identified person, went in again, conducted a truly heinous act. I can't remember exactly how many children were killed in that. And the media, police at the time, so obviously it was under Joe Biden's presidency, they didn't want to release the manifesto. They tried to hide the manifesto. They tried to hide the trans links. But this is something we really need to talk about now. This is something we really need to talk about because it's quite clear that something is very, very sinister going on with the whole... And I've spoken about this before. I've spoken about how sinister this ideology is with James S's, the therapist, for example. The sinister demonic nature of the trans ideology, which ultimately is a complete and utter rejection of any kind of idea of creation and stuff like that. And it tells you a lot when even people who are a lot of atheists nowadays, when they're seeing the way that the culture's shifting, they're starting to realize that maybe these concepts that people have been speaking about, like spiritual war and stuff like that, and the spiritual concepts and spiritual realm and evil forces and stuff, seem to make a lot more sense now. But what happened was, as I said, he went in and murdered 2 children and injured however many more, including staff. And the really sick thing is, ladies and gentlemen, as we'll play this video for you now in a moment, is the video that he recorded beforehand. So make no mistake, you weren't meant to see any of this. You weren't meant to know that the killer was, trans or mentally ill in this way. And we have to classify it now that trans is just a mental illness. We have to really stop playing nice with this ideology now, because it's outright saying that the goal is to kill children, particularly Christian children. And Reddit had a field day when this happened, saying that, they were happy. So many people on Reddit were happy that this happened, that children got slaughtered. And it just goes to show you the real fruits, the real evil fruits of the secular pro-death culture that we have fostered, especially in today's age. The biggest thing is, ladies and gentlemen, is you can see that this is clearly, and why the whole idea is a complete and utter attack on Christianity, right? It's not like this liberal thing where it's not meant to affect anybody, it's just people living their lives or whatever. No, it is just a complete and utter attack on Christianity from evil forces, as recorded by the killer himself before he went and committed this heinous act. In the video you'll see in a moment, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see some of the slogans and some of the stuff which he wrote on his magazines and on his weapons and stuff. You'll see a target in which, at the head of the target, which he was symbolized, or whether he was actually using for target practice, is the passion of Jesus Christ himself. You'll see so many outright anti-Christian things at the moment, and this is like the manifestation of something straight from the mind of what you would imagine if you walk into like Arkham Asylum. If you walk into Arkham Asylum, for example, and the Joker's escaped, and you see that there's graffiti all over the walls, the ha 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 graffiti all over the walls, as the gravest evils are being done, right? You can clearly see those themes coming through. This is, imagine if like you put this person has access to all these guns and whatever else, but this demon just took over their mind and was spraying it everywhere. This is exactly what would manifest. So here is a video coming on screen for you in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Coming on screen now.
Watch my 9mm go bang. I'm the Woker, baby. Why so curious? Where's your fucking god now?
This is disgusting. This is truly, truly disgusting. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, those are important as well. We'll go over those in a moment as well.
Skibbity rid.
This is the demon of Reddit if you gave it chalk markers and told it to go buy a bunch of guns and do whatever else. Another one on you says, fuck everything you stand for. Funniest thing is, if you look at his manifesto, if you look at the killer's written manifesto, which admittedly is quite hard to read, literally on this magazine, I didn't see it before. Literally, you can see under the ha 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 ha. So the Joker comparison was very, very apt indeed. It says more than 10 on one of them. We can only presume that that was potentially a target number. Right, that was potentially a target number. I'm the Woker baby. Why so curious? Ironically, then it says, I love you. So on the one hand, we have, what was it? On the one magazine, the first magazine, it says pain and hate, more than 10. And then on the other magazine, it says, I love you. So which one is it? Which one is it? This just speaks to how truly, truly messed up these people are. And that's why for all the people that don't want to hurt people's feelings because they want to be nice and everything like that. You need to stop playing into these people's delusions, and we as society need to stop playing into these people's delusions, because it's getting people killed. It's getting themselves killed, and it's hurting them, because this is a gross sickness that's afflicting them, right? This is a gross sickness that was afflicting Robert or Robin, whatever term you want to use, whatever name you want to use, that was enabled by his mother. The fact of the matter is, unless you have a good grasp on what evil is and what good is, and the only way you're really going to get that, at least for the most part, the best way you're going to get that is by understanding a certain book that nobody wants to read, by understanding the Word of God, right? Without a clear understanding of that, you can't even condemn any of this as wrong. You know, in a morally relative world, if we live in this world of relativism and, moral relativism especially, can't really even condemn any of this as wrong, other than some arbitrary harm principle, which really doesn't stack up to any sort of scrutiny, because who gets to define what harm is, right? This is why we can't play nice. This is why the term and the phrase came around, make no peace with evil, came around, is because it results in things like this. And now 2 children, very sadly, obviously had their lives claimed by this. Let's go over some of the things, because the media, particularly ITV's Bradbury, wanted to blame this on far-right radicalization. As we know, anything that isn't the hardest of the hardest left-wing agenda, religion, is classed as far-right nowadays. But here's some of the things that you would have seen on this. You saw the names of 6 previous killers. You saw the names of 6 previous school shooters on this magazine. You saw Orvinen, or Orvinen, however you say it, Lanza, Whitman, Holmes, Russell Yakov, and Lapine. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, of the information that I could gather, right, and I will bring it up now a bit quick. Let me see if I can bring it up. Here we go. This is what I wanted to bring up. So, the names of 6 school shooters that were labeled on the magazine. You had Pekka Erik Orvinen, who was responsible for the Jokela High School shooting in Finland, November 7th, 2007. Then you also had Vladislav Roseljakov, who shot up the Kerch Polytechnic College. He was responsible for the Kerch Polytechnic massacre, October the 17th, 2017, killed 20 people. You have Mark Lapine. He was responsible for the École Polytechnique massacre on December 6th, 1989 at the University of Montreal. Then you also had Adam Lanza. He was the Sandy Hook Elementary shooter. That happened in December 2012. Then you had James Holmes. He was the one who shot up the Aurora Theatre in July 2012 during a midnight screening of Dark Knight Rises in Aurora, Colorado. Then you have Charles Whitman. He was known as the Texas Tower Sniper for the University of Texas Tower shooting, August 1st, 1966. And then that was the last one on there, I believe. Yeah, that was the last one, I believe. Now, there's a troubling theme that emerges when you look at some of what these... Obviously, their ideologies range from a lot of things. I believe it was it might have been Mark Lapine, I believe it was. Yeah, Mark Lapine, for example. This is pertinent to bring up because I'm obviously a staunch critic. I'm not going to go to this extent or whatever. In my opinion, this would be another manifestation of the actual thing that he was supposedly fighting against, in my opinion. He supposedly was, or thought in his mind, that he was fighting feminism. He was motivated largely by anti-feminism. That's why a large majority of the students that he targeted were actually women. So he killed 14 women, 13 students and 1 staff member, and wounded others, 10 of which were women, 4 were men, before committing suicide. However, even beyond what supposedly motivated them, because obviously if you're going to do something like this, you're extremely mentally ill, extremely deranged, and don't belong in polite society, right? And I dare say that they were warning signs. But obviously other things as well. You know, what medications were they on? What other factors did they have? But one of the biggest factors in quite a few of these instances, I believe in 4 of them, 4 out of the 6, and I can only say that because one of these people grew up in an intact home, and then the other person it didn't say anything about. But 4 of them had either no father or a very poor father figure. So let me give you some information on these, for example, ladies and gentlemen. It didn't say anything about Olvinen when I looked it up, but you have Vladislav Roseljakov, for example. He grew up in a troubled family with an abusive alcoholic father, a disabled Afghan war veteran, and a strict Jehovah's Witness mother who restricted his social life. Then we skip down to Mark Lepine. Born to an abusive Algerian father who beat the family and had held misogynistic views. And a French-Canadian mother, Lepine changed his name at 14 to distance himself from his father. Had Adam Lanza, who I also believe grew up in a not the best of situations. Yeah, he grew up in a divorced family. His father, Peter Lanza, was a financial executive, and his mother homeschooled him after he exhibited severe social and developmental issues. I believe then James Holmes as well. He was the one that grew up in a stable middle class family. Sorry. So again, not saying that this is a open and shut thing, but the understanding that it can come from anywhere, and obviously mental illness can come from anywhere, right? It can affect you no matter what upbringing you have. But it's interesting to know that 4 of these shooters all had quite poor fathers, it would seem. Whitman was raised in an abusive household by his authoritarian father, Charles Adolphus Whitman Sr., a plumber who inflicted physical violence on the family. His parents divorced shortly before the incident. I spoke about this before because one of the people that I follow on X shared an incident that happened in the UK, I believe it was, where a gang of 10 boys had gone and basically mauled to death a slightly older teenager, I believe it was. I can't remember the exact ages of the boys or anything like that when it was published off the top of my head. I spoke about it a couple of episodes ago. And this is where I think that, or for all the claims that Mark Lepine, for example, thought he was fighting feminism or whatever, I'd argue that it's a manifestation of the ideology itself, because obviously that pretty much goes all the way back to Satanism, and it's only Satan that's relishing in everything that's going on, all the evil that's going on in the world at the moment, whether it's abortion, whether it's apostasy, whether it's school shootings, whatever it is, trans ideology, etc., gender mutilation, surgery, all the rest of it. Satan's relishing in all of it. And obviously a lot of the ideas of feminism completely go antithetical to the way set down by the God of Christianity, as an example. So therefore we go directly against that. So we can assume where feminism is coming from, especially if you look at the history of feminism, right, and the origins of the feminist movement, and going back to like Wiccan, Wiccan rituals and all stuff like that. The one thing that really does stand out, though, is the lack of a good father figure. That's one of the big lies of feminism, is that men and women are interchangeable. It does make you think, if they'd had, and I'm not saying it would have been any different, but if they'd had a decent father figure, the one that wasn't abusive or wasn't alcoholic, or if, the family structure was good and morally virtuous, and men and women understood their roles and stuff like that, and they both aspired to be better for each other and to glorify God and all the rest of it, maybe possibly things would have been different. Obviously, that's one of many factors. However, medication, mental illness, other things that happen in life, whether one of them was a kid running around and run into a table and it fucked up his brain or whatever. All of these other factors are important to consider as well. But the family, and this is why the family is the bedrock institution of society. Ever since we've let the family go, ever since we've decided the family isn't important, which the government has only relished in, right? Government has only relished in, because one of the biggest things that's in opposition to totalitarian rule is a strong family, right? Maybe that teaches us something about the way that we ought to move forward. Maybe we should stop doing things that bring out the worst in each other, i.e. men and women, start doing things that bring out the best in each other. Maybe things then will be different. maybe things then will be different. But there's other things to go through as well that motivated this killer. So as you can see as well, the stark image with this, ladies and gentlemen, that really shows, because for all of the people that say that you can't draw a motive from this, when you see an image like this, when you see that the person has taken the passion of the Christ, passion of the Lord, put it on top of on the head of a target, a human-shaped target, right? And that he's essentially using for target practice. That's a lot of symbolism right there. That's how you know where this is coming from. This is truly demonic. This is truly demonic and a hatred of anything virtuous, anything holy, anything like that, right? So when you see all the media saying that it's too early to draw a motive, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. It all ties back to the same thing. It all ties back to evil. It all ties back to evil. And you should remember that when all of the elected leaders, such as the mayor of Minneapolis and Jen Psaki and all of the rest of them, Brian Krasenstein and all of the others, right? That when they say now, because it's children that got killed, we shouldn't pray. When it's Christian children that got killed, sorry, we shouldn't pray. But yet, when it was any other incident that happened, hopes and prayers, etc., etc. Jacob Frey, I believe it was, came out and said, no, prayers are not enough. Literally, these kids were literally praying. That's what he said. As if, prayer is just meant to manifest as some kind of force field that protects you from all kinds of damage or whatever, right? Obviously, people wouldn't understand that. But then people using that to insult the faith of the young children and their families at a time when this absolutely heinous thing has happened, in order to deflect from who the perpetrator was and the fact that the perpetrator stems exactly from the ideology which the political leaders have spent so much time defending and fostering, because of their own misguided moral compasses, because of their own suicidal empathy, because of their own goals of more political power and stuff like that, from things that we've deemed politically correct, and kids died as a result of it. And then to rub salt in the wound, they say not to pray for them. So, which you should do. Obviously, no, you need to give your guns away. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do, despite the fact that after the Covenant School shooting, I believe it was, in Tennessee, Tim Waltz, the people of this school actually approached Tim Waltz and said, can we have more funding for security or whatever it was? They said, can we have more measures put in place for security for the kids, please? And he never did it. And then they want to come out afterwards and say about political action. Go absolutely fuck yourselves. Go absolutely fuck yourselves. And Americans, make sure you hold on to that Second Amendment. Make sure you don't allow these disgusting politicians to stand on the graves of these children to further take your freedoms away from you. In the name of care and in the name of empathy, when they spent so long directly fostering the ideology that led to these kids being murdered. Take it from us in the UK. You don't want to do that. Again, looking at some of the other things as well, ladies and gentlemen, because you can see that this person was indeed radicalized by a lot of different things. Hated Jews, right? You can argue they hated Christians as well, obviously, because the attack was on Christians, the attack was on Catholics in particular. But on the barrel of one of the guns, it says, Israel must fall. Now, that could obviously mean the secular state of Israel, but it also could mean, in a biblical sense, the new Israel, as many would argue, which is the church, right? The church must fall. That makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense to why there'd be the passion of the Christ at the head of the figurehead, right? At the head of the target, right? But you also have this graffiti on one of the guns as well, I believe it is, or it looks like it's on one of the sides of the guns anyway. It says 6 million wasn't enough. So you can see that this person was not just anti-Israel in the sense of the anti-secular state of Israel. They're outright anti-Semitic. They're outright anti-Jew, right? And they're outright, in that instance, which is one of the ways that, again, the far left and the far right are not so different. They all tend to coalesce around hatred of the Jews and stuff like that. There's another one listed on there as well. Mohammed Atta, who was one of the ringleaders of the 9/11 operations. This is just truly glorifying all manner of terror and destruction, which is why, again, best liars always marry a bit of truth to the lie. They even got sponsored by BlackRock and Killer Sadist on there as well, allegedly, from one of the other images that I've seen. But as you can see here, on the underside of the trigger housing of one of the pistols, which you can see here, they have Mohammed Atta. Well, they have Atta's name anyway. So you can see that they're one of the ringleaders of the 9/11 operation. But what did ITV come out and do? in true classic British fashion, ITV, Tom Bradby, came out and obviously said that the Minneapolis church shooter was far right and motivated by, anti-Semitic and racist, ideas. Nothing about Antichrist. Nothing about that he's a far left tranny loony on whatever other medication and hormones, whatever else he was on, right? Now, the fact that, he was enabled by a suicidally empathetic, grossly clouded, supposedly Catholic mother, right? Any excuse to blame everything on the far right, the quote-unquote far right, the UK media will absolutely do. The UK media will absolutely do, as evidenced by ITV themselves.
Even by the standards we've very sadly grown used to, the video apparently recorded by the assailant behind the latest school shooting in Minneapolis was utterly chilling. 2 children were killed, one aged 10, one aged 8. Many more. The assailant appears to have been attracted to far-right ideology, including apparent signs of racism and anti-Semitism. Robert will explain. Also on News at 10 tonight.
So there you go. Again, no mention of anti-Christian sentiment. No mention of anti-Christian sentiment whatsoever. But again, you've only got to look at, the shooter heavily into trans ideology, heavily into queer ideology, anti-Trump, shooting up kids in the Catholic Church. These are all hallmarks of the very, very far left. But this is a wider political point as well, for example, that we should all be wary of, ladies and gentlemen. And that is the fact that the far left and the far right, in terms of their ideology, in terms of their methods as well, I'm not saying that there's been, this wave of actual far-right Nazi shootings or whatever, but in terms of how they want to apply it, in terms of the totalitarian state that they want to foster, in terms of their love of socialism and all things like that, far left and far right tend to not be so different. Far left and far right tend to not be so different. So again, the best lie, in this instance coming from our mainstream media in the UK, best lie is always one that's married to a hint of truth. Just before we move on with this now, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to put a spotlight on I just want to see if I can find the victims in question, because we should be remembering them. We should be remembering them, especially the good children. Some children were yelling at their classmates to get under church pews and threw their bodies over the friends to protect them from gunfire. But sadly, there were, as I said, 2 children that were lost, 2 children that were murdered. There's an 8-year-old boy by the name of Fletcher Merkel, and there was a young girl, I believe, 10-year-old girl, Harper Moisky. So please, ladies and gentlemen, do indeed say some prayers for the souls of these beautiful children, and especially for their families and their loved ones at this time as well. Make sure we want the killer and a memory of him to be lost to eternity, obviously, right? But may the memories of the children, the victims, live on. Here's Fletcher. And here is, damn it, man. And here's Harper. Coming up on screen for you now. While the killer's name should and can be lost to history, let's make sure these children's, like the names of the children who were killed at Southport, that their memories and their names always live on. And the more stories today before we round out today, ladies and gentlemen. So hopefully this episode will be out later on today. And an immortal headline. So we're going straight from one mainstream media fiasco to another, but this time involving the quote-unquote Home Office. There was an immortal headline that was published in the Telegraph yesterday afternoon at 4:15 p.m. Everyone will remember where they were at 4:15 p.m. yesterday afternoon, because the Telegraph published this headline: "The rights of asylum seekers trump people of Epping," advises or argues Home Office. That is a headline that was published in the UK Telegraph outlet. So after a High Court injunction, the Home Office lawyers have now argued basically that the rights of asylum seekers should trump the locals of Epping, and that basically the citizens of Epping, the locals of Epping, should be made second-class citizens in their own towns. That's basically what they've argued. Asylum seekers' rights are more important than the concerns of the people of Epping, Home Office has declared. Home Office. Important to remember. Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen. Important to remember. I'll see if it's in my bookmarks and I'll bring it up now. Important to remember what the Home Office, quote unquote Home Office looks like. Because I do believe I bookmarked I thought I bookmarked a photo of them. Oh well, let's see if I can find it now. Because the Home Office, I made the claim over and over that the Home Office is not even a Home Office, it's a Foreign Office. And the Home Office is a Foreign Office because it's quite clear that it is staffed predominantly by Muslims, foreigners, and Muslim foreigners. Just bear in mind, when those who say that these are the people whom are saying that the rights of asylum seekers matter more than the locals in their own communities. These are the people that are saying that. Do you notice something here, ladies and gentlemen? Or rather, do you notice a distinct absence of something? Yes, you'd be right in saying you'll notice a distinct absence of British people, is what you'll notice. You notice a distinct absence of British people. And then it's foreigners saying that foreigners have more rights in our communities than our local people, our, fellow Britons do. And that should surprise you none. It should surprise you none with how naturally tribal and sectarian the human race is. Our politicians have spent generations trying to convince us that isn't true for their own political gain, but very, very sadly it is, and people are realising that more and more and more now. On Friday, so that's today actually, a judge will rule whether Epping Forest District Council can close a hotel housing illegal migrants or the Home Office can continue to use it to house asylum seekers. On Thursday, Home Office lawyers told the Court of Appeal that Yvette Cooper has a duty as Home Secretary to prevent asylum seekers from being made destitute under the European Convention of Human Rights, and they should continue to live at the Bell Hotel, despite the fact that, a 14-year-old girl was sexually assaulted by one of the people within this hotel. They flipped off the bunch of locals, they spat at them, they showed their arse to them. Not the kind of people that we want in our communities under any circumstance whatsoever. Doesn't matter whether they're fleeing asylum or whatever, but we know the fact that they're not actually fleeing asylum. In many instances, we know that. One of the people that recently claimed asylum, and came here was from Tanzania. I saw a newspaper article or saw a X post, I believe it was. It came from Tanzania. And Tanzania is a place you can book to go on a holiday, ladies and gentlemen. So dare say, if it was at war, well, a lot of these places actually are not at war and haven't been at war for a long time. But obviously the asylum system is just being used as a great replacement system. One of the systems within this great replacement narrative, right? Within this greater replacement system. They claim this responsibility trumped the council's powers to close the hotel, which has been at the centre of protest in recent weeks after an asylum seeker living there was accused of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl. He's since been arrested as well, by the way. It was I believe it was a 36-year-old, it was a 36-year-old migrant it was. I do have it somewhere. Here we go. It says here, Hadush Gerber Slazi Kebatu is accused of attempting to kiss a 14-year-old girl, and he has been arrested. I believe he has been arrested, and I dare say this will be going bad. I dare say this will be going bad for the people of Epping, and I dreaded to think what we're going to be seeing happen afterwards, because one of the judges, quote unquote, presiding over this, I believe it is a Lord Justice Bean, said a ruling on the appeal would be made on Friday at 12 p.m. because of the great urgency of this matter. And news outlets such as GB News and other articles and outlets are now detailing his prior involvement with the Fabian Society, which, by the way, the logo for the Fabian Society is a wolf in sheep's clothing. So that should tell you all you need to know about where this is going to go if the establishment gets their way. But you want to know about the kinds of people, as I said. You have the Ethiopian, I believe it was an Ethiopian migrant that we just mentioned, trying to kiss a 14-year-old girl, right? We have all of this happen all up and down the country. It is a true epidemic. And so many, and this is particularly if you're a kind of person or you know somebody, this all refugees welcome and whatever else, right? And, you know, we love immigration and all of this kind of stuff without caring about who's coming in and what ideologies they bring and how they see you, right? I'm always reminded of the scene. It just come to my mind now. I'm always reminded of the scene from the children's film Madagascar, which just come out when I was a kid, and the scene where they're trapped on this island for so long, and because they start getting so hungry, Alex just starts hallucinating that all the other animals are like literal pieces of meat, and chases Marty, who I believe is voiced by what's his name? I can't remember that. Is it it's not Chris Rock. Who voices, leave in the comments who voices the zebra in Madagascar and who voices the lion, right? Leave it in the comments because I've bloody forgotten. But the fact that he just sees everything as meat, right? You know, he just sees this massive crowd of meat that he's giving this speech to, and he's about to go in and delve into all the meat and stuff like that. Just start seeing all the other animals as these bits of meat, right? And say what you want. Sad thing is that is how a lot of people coming from other areas of the world see, in particular, women. In particular young women. And sadly, it does seem that somebody found this out the hard way, because this is not necessarily an asylum seeker, but a homeless migrant after being sheltered by a mother of three when he was then asked to leave, beat said mother of three to death. So you have a lovely culture enricher here by the name of Apapale Adawam, or Adaum, however you say it, was asked to leave after a while after being sheltered in Victoria Adams's home. And when she asked him to leave, beat her to death with a mallet. So I couldn't find the GB News article, but I did find a BBC article. Homeless man guilty of murdering woman in her flat, from the BBC. A homeless man accused of battering a West London woman to death with a mallet days after she took him in has pleaded guilty to her murder. Victoria Adams, 37, was found dead at her Hammersmith flat on 9th of February after police were called to a report of a man attempting to break into a property in Coulter Road. Adum, 39, who was arrested at the scene, met her on 6th of February when he was living in a homeless shelter. Miss Adams was found face down in a bedroom with a bin bag over her head, which was covered by a pillow. She had suffered at least 10 injuries to the back and side of her head from being struck with a blunt object, said to be a mallet, found with her blood and DNA on it. She invited Adum to stay with her, but later wrote a note to ask him to leave. And that's it. And then she was murdered for her trouble. So again, you have to always be wary. You have to always be wary of these things now, ladies and gentlemen, very, very sadly. Very, very sadly. This is one of many. It's one of many. You should be thinking about this next time. Now, the government is trying to force your doors open to these people. And bear in mind, they're not doing it because you're going to be any better off because of it. They're doing it because they want to force you to house their new voter bloc. And I know I'm preaching to the converted a little bit by here, but everybody needs to, this message needs to keep being said. This message needs to keep being said, right? And you need to share it with your friends, especially your liberal ones, if anything, just so I can hear about their meltdowns and everything else. But, this could be your, I don't know, sister, niece, whatever. This could be your relative or friend. And the government should not be forcing people into our communities that have no business being here. This is our home. This is our home. As the internationalists and the socialists, they want to make your home a home for everybody, no matter what heinous things that they will do. No matter who they are, right? No matter what their religious ideology or anything like that is, which does matter. And they'll bend over backwards for them. We spoke last time, I believe it was, or the time before that, about the Senedd giving quote-unquote refugees, quote-unquote asylum seekers, free access to public buildings, CADU buildings, right, and stuff like that. Well, asylum seekers were handed almost 1 million NHS free passes, right? This was published on 1st of August this year. New data shows asylum seekers, quote-unquote, were awarded 920,199 of the 1.56 million HC2 certificates issued in the last 5 years. Almost 1 million NHS free passes have been given out to asylum seekers in the last 5 years. HC2 certificates give low-income residents the right to freebies not afforded to most of the public, including free prescriptions, dental care, eye tests, wigs, and discounts for glasses, contact lenses, travelling to and from appointments. So, ladies and gentlemen, we as in the British people, Welsh people, English people, whatever, you pay your taxes. You're paying exorbitant amount of taxes into the system, in theory, so you'll have something to live on at the end of your life, right? Paying into your pension or whatever, so you're going to get a state pension at the end of it. You're going to get, all of this stuff from the state back at the end of your life, right? Which now in many instances, funnily enough, a lot of those are disappearing, right? Like your fuel winter allowances and all the rest of it. Meanwhile, they'll give people coming here illegally, dropping their documentation in the channel. Many instances now we have terrorist networks exploiting our open borders, right? Active Patriot, one of the things he was documenting is that we now have literal ISIS, literal Islamic State within our borders, right? We know how many people are on the watch list and stuff like that. God knows how many are within our borders. But why are these people who you think that their first priorities would be food, water, shelter? Yeah, we're giving them wigs. Why? Why? I don't understand it. It makes literally no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. I literally have no words for it. Your local authorities, right, your government, with these HC2 certificates, because then it says, okay, we'll leech off the taxpayer to give them hotel accommodation, to give them 3 meals a day, buffet meals and all the rest of it, which most of them are the ungrateful fucks. They don't eat it anyway, right? Going to one of the migrant hotel auditors, which worked within the hotels, who now I believe has also been put under arrest and under draconian conditions. Right, tells you what you need to know about the British state, right? How much they love free speech. Over half, 60%, 6 out of 10 nearly, giving them then prescriptions, wigs, discounts for glasses. Yet we are the ones that pay into the system. We are the ones that keep the system going, but we get no rewards from it. If anything, then we end up being forced to pay more. We end up being forced to pay more as a people. Tell me how that makes any kind of sense. And then you wonder why people are fleeing, wonder why people are going to Dubai and going to other countries, right? Where the government is not going to take as much of their fucking money and use it on things like this, which the vast majority of people don't support anyway. This is what happens when you have a government that is accountable to no one. It's what happens when you have a state. It's very similar. It's not quite at the extreme end of it is that it is, but it's the same system. That's why we call North Korea the Hermit Kingdom and stuff like that. It's the same system. It's all the same system. It's all the same system of rules for thee and not for me, which is why Angela Rayner, despite touting about the evils of the rich and everything like that, can now buy her third home at 800,000. And then evade, obviously, get around, stamp duty tax to about the tune of about £40,000, I believe. You're virtuous, morally upright politicians, everybody. But not to mention, when we're talking about people being flooded into our communities who we know nothing about, we don't know who they are, it doesn't help them when the police will fail, quote-unquote, to record crimes. Not only will they outright not record crimes because many of them are just disgusting and evil, then they'll also fail to record crimes because they're simply inept. And that is DEI in a nutshell, isn't it? Putting A, the least qualified, and B, probably the person from a moral standpoint you want at least in a position as well. Because they're getting there from a position of victimhood, and they'd be very resentful because of it. Police forces failed to record, this is from the Telegraph again, 285,000 crimes last year. Assault, stalking, and coercive control are among violent offences not adequately documented. So from Martin Evans at the Telegraph, police are failing to record more than 250,000 crimes each year, including violent attacks and incidents of antisocial behaviour. Inspectors from the police watchdog estimated more than 5% of all offences were missing from official data. The audit for crime data found that violent offences such as assault, stalking, and coercive control were still not being recorded adequately. I wonder why. Could there be a political incentive for that, I wonder? Meanwhile, only around half of cases of antisocial behaviour were being logged properly, with the report saying this level of crime recording is unacceptably low, and it means victims remain at risk of harm. Just imagine if you only had 50% on a test, what your parents would say. Right, presumably they're, relatively good, virtuous parents and they care about your education. If you only came home with 50% on a test, what do you think your fucking parents would say? And then, that is unacceptable when you then extrapolate it to antisocial behaviour and other kinds of crime. Right, from the people whom we charge with protect and serve. So it says victims left without help. The report said if forces don't record crimes correctly, they may not allocate investigative resources efficiently. We already know that because they're allocating all of their investigative resources to X posts and super crack fucking forces online. That's what they're bloody putting all of their resources to, because controlling information and controlling people's thoughts and words is more important than controlling whether fucking Abdul and Ahmed and Mohammed and Iqbal and whoever else is going around in a gang in Luton or going around a gang in Rotherham or Rochdale or Bradford or Swansea or Monmouthshire, whatever it may be, going around raping children. They don't care about that because it's not politically advantageous to pursue that, because why would they pursue people for crimes when they want them to vote for them? Why would they do that? Most importantly, victims of these crimes who are often particularly vulnerable may be left without the help they desperately need, in many instances because the police have outright turned on them. You only need to look at how many reports of the police were calling the victims of the grooming gangs white slags and all the rest of it, right? And child prostitutes, right? Without even batting an eye at the fact that there's many things wrong with even that term existing, because how can a child be a prostitute, right? That shows you the level of the degeneracy that we tolerate in our society, the fact that we were using terms like that, the fact that you use terms like that and you wouldn't even bat an eye being like, hang on, wait, what? Child prostitute? No, that's not a thing. That's a child rape victim. But yeah, that's what happens when you lose track and you lose grip on the moral foundation of your society. So you're losing grip on the moral foundation of society and stuff like that. We're going to go into two small stories now, just to round out today. Which I think is important to go through. Before we get into the last bit of why the Notting Hill Carnival or the Notting Hill Festival, whatever it is, needs to be eradicated. I'm not saying that any person there, any person in particular needs to be eradicated or whatever, as in when we talk about the trans ideology being eradicated, that's what, we need to get rid of it from public life. The Notting Hill Carnival, whatever it is, needs to be gone from public life. So if this is a quote unquote celebration of Black and Caribbean culture, I don't want it anywhere near it. As far as I'm concerned, it can go back out to the Caribbean where it quote unquote belongs. The people who celebrate it, right? The people who celebrate it and the celebration themselves do not belong on British soil. But anyway, one thing that was quite humorous that happened is that's why I'm really thingy about people that report on what's going on in the Middle East at the moment. There's been a lot of politicization on what's been going on in the Middle East with regards to Israel and Gaza and all the rest of it. Claims of genocide, claims of ethnic cleansing and stuff like that. And I'm not a simp for the Israeli government. I'm not a simp for the Israeli government or anything like that. I've been, perfectly upright in saying that I am, relatively pragmatically in favor of the state of Israel, purely because of the holy sites and because I don't want to see the Holocaust completed, right? That's why I don't want it. I don't have any particular, loyalty or, unceasing, fealty to the Israeli government, if you will. And I'll happily call out things on both sides. I spoke about the Catholic Church being hit in Gaza, for example, and listened to other prominent commentators who maybe, some of them saying it was more of an accident, some of them saying that, they deserved it, seemingly, others saying that it wasn't an accident. So yeah, those things need to be talked about, and if it is intentional, if it is that they're targeting Christians, and obviously you would have a potential case to make there, given that, a lot of Jewish nationalists, they obviously don't like Christians, from a religious standpoint, especially Orthodox Jews going back, to the time of Christ themselves, with the things that he said, and the church that he set up. Obviously, there's a lot of animosity there in many instances, right? A lot of us, we've reached an understanding and stuff like that. But again, there's differences there. There's differences there which would potentially could spark conflict and other reasons to pursue those kinds of things. So when a church gets hit, or when there's Hebrew graffiti inside a church, inside a school, a Catholic school that was attacked, you need to talk about those things. You need to address those things, and those things do need to be condemned. But it's important to then not go too far, especially with people that just commit outright Jew hatred, I see, and they won't acknowledge anything on the other side, which is the propaganda coming out of the other side. And you have prominent, even conservative commentators that will just take the Gaza Ministry of Health statistics at face value and say that Israel is committing a genocide or whatever. They won't make any distinction as to whether it's combatant or non-combatant, how many of those are actual Hamas operatives. Then when you actually start doing the math, you see that Israel in their pursuit has actually been quite clinical, more clinical than any of our governments have been in the past and the present in terms of the urban warfare environment that they're operating in. They've done an extremely good job, it seems, and very sadly is a consequence of war that civilians, and in this case, there's a lot of children in Gaza. Children do die, very unfortunate. But then you do have to look at the society that tries to fake children being injured or killed or starved or whatever, and say that, oh no, they're morally abhorrent as well. They're disgusting as well. Which is why I see a lot of weird times where Christians simp for Muslims and be like, bro, they're coming for you. They're coming for you as well. They come for the Saturday people, then they come for the Sunday people, as the saying goes. But this is quite a funny incident of what seems to be a mother in Gaza with a scan to donate link into a GoFundMe, and there's a child in this clip where the child is making noises, just doing child things, right, playing for the camera, and has horrific scars on the face of the child. You think, fuck, what's going on here? Child's been horrifically injured by a bomb or shrapnel or something like that. I'll let the video play, and then I'll let you see what you notice about this child's quote-unquote injuries and what happens after they move their hands in front of their face.
I am Safa from Gaza. Infamous kill me and kill my children. Please share the video and use my audio to reach my voice to the world. To reach my voice to the world. Share the video and use my audio to reach my voice to the world. Please help.
Oh no. So again, this is where you see that these people, which you can appreciate the plight of the children and stuff like that, but then you can see how much the adults in this situation, it always scares me when you have children starving, but you have adults with BMIs that rival people in the United States. Really, really, really annoys me. That does, when people use children for political purposes in that way. And they'll harm children for the political pursuit in that way. But what you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't watching the video, if you were listening, it's a video of a mother with two children. She's claiming, they'd killed my children or whatever, as in the IDF or whatever. Use my link. Please donate. Please help us. Pardon me. And what the kid on the right-hand side does, the one with the scars on the face, eventually moves their hand, obviously the mother not paying too much attention on what the child is doing, trying to just record a propaganda video, not thinking anything's going to happen. You have this, before the child moves their hands in front of their face, this is the image, which I'll bring up on screen again, of the scars across the child's face. Now what happens is, the child moves their hands in front of their face, and the scars, the same scars and bloody nose and whatever else, transfer to the mother's face, which you can see in this image here, which I've frozen for you here. Obviously, it was frozen in the video anyway. And this completely destroys any notion of sympathy for me. So it shows that you're trying, and she tries to then angle the camera to get the scars back onto the child's face, realizing that she's been duped. But then she still thinks that she can dupe people, seemingly, because this video was presumably then posted to the internet, and presumably people did donate. Presumably then people did donate. Presumably people were taken in by this. And this is how stupid these people think you are. People that are coming here with the colonizing imperialistic ideology of Islam, they think you're stupid enough to fall for this, mind you. They think you're stupid enough to fall for this. They think you're stupid enough to fall for when they say Islam is a religion of peace and they want to coexist and all of these things, right? And they'll use filters on their children to con you out of your money. This is disgusting. This is disgusting. And while I'll never support any Palestinian, quote-unquote, refugee or whatever coming to this country for whatever reason, it's quite clearly that people can't be trusted. Quite clearly people can't be trusted. And, you know, I just want the sooner the conflict in the Middle East is obviously resolved, the better. Sooner the hostages are returned back, the better. And hopefully then children can stop dying, right? Children can stop dying. Hostages returned, children stop dying. That's what we all should fucking want. Is it? Isn't it? Finally, because all of this is, you know, evil and, you know, degenerate in many ways. Evil and degenerate is words that I would use to describe the Notting Hill Festival or Notting Hill Carnival, which is supposedly, ladies and gentlemen, a celebration of all things of, I believe it's Black and Caribbean culture, I believe it is. Which looks like something straight out of Sodom and Gomorrah. So I'm just going to try and bring this video up now. It's not playing for some reason at the moment, but this is a video of this year's Notting Hill Festival, Notting Hill Carnival, in which there were 528 arrests over the 2 days, the two main days of the events. In the past, police have gotten in on the action. Police have been, you know, pretending to, you know, doing sex acts on some of the girls that, you know, for lack of a better term, I don't want to use, but it just, you know, acting like animals, if you will. It plays right into the hands of people, by the way, that want to, you know, compare these people to certain animals and stuff like that with the way that they act. This is, you know, some of the worst degeneracy that we've really ever seen. And it has no place. It has no place in our society. So this is a celebration of Black and Caribbean culture. Then I want nothing to do with Black and Caribbean culture. Sorry, and it has no place on British soil. So bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just seeing if I can get this video to work. Right, okay, we would have just seen a slight jump cut there, ladies and gentlemen. So, the video wasn't working initially. I've managed to get it to work now. Right, you would have seen a slight jump cut there, ladies and gentlemen. The video didn't work initially, but it is working now. Here are some of the scenes from the culturally enriching festival known as Notting Hill from this year.
Sorry, excuse me, can I still do?
That's enough of this absolute degeneracy. So you can see there, ladies and gentlemen, much like the degeneracy that we see at Pride festivals, people seem to have no end of pleasure in taking their children to these things and getting them involved in this as well. So you saw at the end, there was a bunch of children cheering on as people were walking past, much like you'd see as some kind of Pride parade. I'm not exactly sure why they're being celebrated. Not sure why they're being celebrated for moving around like literal animals, but I'm not sure if you saw it midway through, ladies and gentlemen. Midway through, I will put the scene back up on the screen for you in a moment and play it for you. There was a scene midway through this miasma, just coming up on screen for you now, of adults, particular females. So it was one female, but it was surrounded by a group of other females and other males who was twerking on the groin of a literal child, was twerking on the groin of a literal child, which you can see on screen now. The degeneracy of this seems to know absolutely no bounds. It does not belong. Britain has nothing to do with this. Britain has nothing to do with this, and the fact that we were forced to say this as normal and this is British is disgusting, and it's a disgusting betrayal of our good name in terms of the things that we've given the world as a people. For us as a people to be associated with this should be something we see, or should see, as a grave insult, as something disgusting, something degenerate. And it needs to be, you know, as a festival, as a celebration or whatever, it needs to be eradicated, and every single one of these people needs to be deported, in my opinion, no matter what. And not to mention no end of times where it's resulted in damaging public property. So this is an incident now that happened with degeneracy led to injury, could have potentially led to death, but I feel more sorry for the taxpayer that then had to foot the bill for this. This is, in fact, I'll just let the video on this one speak for itself. So happened, ladies and gentlemen, if you were watching and you were listening, there was a lady, she was twerking and gyrating on top of a bus stop, and then a bunch of other people came up to join her, and then the bus stop predictably collapsed onto a bunch of other people who were standing on the pavement, one of whom took the bus stop, seemingly the top of the bus stop, straight to the top of the head. And again, who's going to have to foot the bill for that? Rather, you know, unfairly, is the taxpayer. Rather unfairly. But we're supposed to celebrate this. We're supposed to celebrate this when this is another thing that happened. This was from Notting Hill 2 years ago. So that one was also a clip that was posted this year, but it might have been from last year. This one was posted 2 years ago. And this is what I mean. For all times police get in on the degeneracy as well, this is one of the instances where they appear to be a victim of said degeneracy, but if anybody says anything or anybody wants to do anything to stop it, they'll be the first to call them a racist bigot or whatever. Here's what can only be described as a sexual assault on a police officer by one of these people. It's hard to feel sorry for the police when, you know, they're out there protecting these disgusting criminals that will do this for real on children and stuff like that. It's hard to feel sorry for them, but I do wonder what this lady had to do to deserve this. And this is another reason why there shouldn't be any female police officers, in my opinion, because if the person wanted to do this, she would then be relying on her male colleague to help her out. But not to mention, there's a bunch of people that will join in with the tribe of this gentleman that will make any resistance futile. So again, put herself in danger for no reason whatsoever. Another one of the fruits of feminism, but another reason this is so degenerate, ladies and gentlemen, because if you live in the area, you'll then have random people coming down and faux apologizing as they then take a piss in your home, basically in your front. I don't know if you can call it, you can't really call it a garden, but in the front sort of concrete garden, if you will, like this lady did in this video.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna get water and I'm gonna wipe water away, yeah?
That'll do. Nobody needs to see any more of that. This is disgusting. And has no business being in Britain. And if you support this, I think you might want to take a good long look in the fucking mirror. This has nothing to do with Britain. There's nothing British about this, and there's nothing worth celebrating about this. As I said, if this is a celebration of Black and Caribbean culture, I don't want to celebrate Black and Caribbean culture. I don't even want to tolerate Black and Caribbean culture. I want this culture, much like the culture of leftism and transgenderism and all the rest of it, that is killing our nations and killing our people in many instances, quite literally, to be eradicated. I think you should too. And that'll do it for today. Thank you very much for watching, listening, ladies and gentlemen. I greatly appreciate it. Hope you find it useful. Hope there's some instances there that you enjoyed. Certainly not a lot of things in here that I enjoyed talking about. Thank you very much. As always, you take care now. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, good night, wherever you are. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for watching. Hwyl fawr. We'll see you next time. You take care now. Godspeed.